One of the really useful components Bootstrap provides is responsive navbars. If we head over to the documentation, in the components section, if we scroll down to the navbar tab, we can go through some examples of what Bootstrap provides. If we scroll down, we can find out some more information about how these work, the classes we need to apply, or we could scroll down to some of these examples, and this is going to be a one which is similar to what we're going to be building. It's going to have our site title in the top corner, then some various links, and we can even have a drop down if we want, a search box, and then a search button. This will also be responsive, so if we were to shrink the browser down, this would turn into a nice drop down menu like this. So let's get to work over in our index page. So inside of our index.html, let's give us a little bit more space. So to begin at the top of the body section, we're going to get this started just like a normal header section. So let's use the HTML header tags. And then inside of here, we can go and construct a nav. Inside this nav, we're going to add our A tag. And this is going to be for our site title. So we can add our gourmet burgers title inside of here. And we can just keep the href as an empty attribute for now. That's fine. So there's our site title inside of here. And then just after, we're going to create a div, which will be a container for our links. So just add these in for now. We're going to go ahead and add some Bootstrap classes soon, but for now I just want to show you the structure. Inside this div, we have an unordered list, and this is going to be for our list items. So we're going to have home and also locations. So let's add the li tags, and these are going to be links too. So nest a link inside of here. The first one is home, and then a second list item, again with the a tag nested inside, and this is going to be for locations. Okay, so there's our links, our unordered list, and then after this unordered list, we're going to add a form, and this is going to be for the search box. So add the form just here, and make sure this is still within this surrounding div. So just for this closing div tag. Then we can go ahead and add our input to the form, and then our button just afterwards. And this is going to be the button with the type of submit. And then close this off with the text of search. So let's save that and then open this up inside the browser. Okay, so there's our standard looking header section, the title, the links, and then the search below. So now all we need to do is go ahead and add some Bootstrap classes to make this look nicer and also be responsive. Let's start right at the very top inside the nav section. So let's add the class. So the first one we need is navbar, because this is a navbar, and then also a second class of navbar expand md. So this will make the navbar expand on medium-sized devices. Then navbar dark, this is for the darker theme. Then the fixed hyphen top, so it's fixed at the top of the page, and then bg dark. So let's give that a save and go over to the browser. If we reload, we can instantly see a dark background color, but let's go into the developer tools and see what each one of these classes actually does in practice. So let's make a bit more space and then inspect our nav. So this fixed top was one of the things which we added. This adds the position to be fixed, and it also sets it right at the top of the page. We have background dark, which sets this dark background color we see here. And remember, we also added navbar expand md. This kicks in inside the media query with the minimum width of 768 pixels, just like we looked at in early videos. Okay, so back over to our code, and let's start with the A tags. So we have the empty href. Let's go ahead and add a new class to here too. And this one can be navbar brand. And remember, these are all classes provided by Bootstrap. Save, and then refresh. And now we have this white color link. Okay, so remember from before we added a surrounding div container, which surrounds all this section here. This is the section which collapses on the smaller screens. So therefore, Bootstrap provides us with some classes we can add, called collapse, and also navbar-collapse. And this will keep the collapse section looking nice. Down to the unordered list, we have the class of navbar-nav, and then a second one which is mr-auto. mr-auto applies auto margin to the right of this unordered list. This pushes the search bar over to the right hand side. So if we refresh, this now applies automatic margin on the right of this unordered list, keeping this section over on the right hand side. We will talk more about margin and padding in more detail later on in this section, but for now let's go over to the list items and add our classes here. So the first one is nav item, and then we can do the same to the second list item, the same class of nav item. Then there's also some links, so we add the class for the link of nav link. And then the second one, which is just here, this is also nav link 2. Okay, so save, and over to the browser, and now have a little bit more spacing and also some different coloring. Again, we can go into the developer tools and see what each one of these classes does individually. So over to the nav link. Okay, so we have this navbar dark and also the navbar link, which gives it this color. We have some media queries which apply some padding for various sizes. The same with this nav link which we added. It has a display type of block and also some padding. And this all makes sure our navbar is nicely all lined up with some spacing around. If we shrink the browser and close this down, we don't yet see the button in the top right hand corner on the smaller screens like we've seen in the Bootstrap demo in the documentation. For this we need to add a button to our code. So just underneath the Gourmet Burgers title and just before this div, which is the collapse section, we're going to add a button. And then inside this button, this is going to take in a class of navbar toggler. This is going to have the type of button. And then the next part is going to be for data toggle. And we set this to be collapse. And this makes the button a toggle button, which expands and collapses the content of another element. The other element which we're referring to is this div below with the class of collapse and navbar collapse. So to link this button to this div, we need to add a ID to begin with, and we can call this anything we want, but I'm going to call this the navbar collapse. And now this has a unique reference, we can go ahead to our button and add a data target and give this the same name. So we'll add a hash because it's a ID, and then we have navbar collapse. Okay, so now let's go over to the browser and then refresh. And now if we shrink the browser down, we can see we've got the button in the top right hand corner, but it doesn't stand out too much at the moment. So let's just take a look. Actually, inside the buttons, we need to add the icon for the button. We do this using the span element, and then add some classes of navbar. And this is navbar toggler icon. Save that, and then shrink the browser down. And there we go. So this is the span element with the icon inside. So we can now see our button, and this also drops down because it's linked to the separate div section. And the div it's linked to is this one here with the ID of navbar collapse, which we're linked with this data target just here. This is now the section complete, and we have a nice looking navigation bar by simply applying some Bootstrap classes and helpers. In the next video, we're going to be adding an image carousel to this homepage.